Hey there everyone, today we're going to take a look at a match that was sent to me by Anna. This is Anna versus Yakuza, a lot of very powerful monsters in this match and it's a really good battle. So to start off with, Anna's team really wants to meet Chrono monsters and Yakuza's team doesn't have any killer weaknesses in it. So there's not a whole lot that Anna can do. She does a times up on Suikenshi and Jaguardian just to make them a little bit easier to kill. His Dracorosa doesn't have any targets. We'll get to the teams at the end of this battle. I've got screenshots of both the teams, so I'll be able to talk through how they're constructed at that point. But at this point, Yakuza really needs to kill Voidress. Voidress has Eclipse; it can kill anything with that. Doesn't need to, have the Chrono condition or anything like that. So that's the monster to get rid of, and Suikenshi is the only one that can reliably get rid of Voidress at that point. So Jaguardian probably goes for the Vigzerid there, but unfortunately doesn't go around the Protector. Ryzen again can't really do much, so just puts Overwatch back on. So Suikenshi is undoubtedly the strongest monster that's on the enemy team, so Anna gets rid of that first, and then just accelerates what she has. What does the sleep land on? Unfortunately it landed on the Saber Dragon, the only enemy that was had sleep immunity. So at this point, it's difficult to know exactly what Yakuza is going to plan. I would probably think that Yakuza is going to backstab either the Dracorosa or Saber Dragon, because those are the two monsters that aren't doing too much. Jaguardian's a very strong monster that's reliable, so I would leave that one. So what Anna probably wants to do is either kill the Geomagnus or the Jaguardian. Geomagnus is unfortunately really hard to kill because she's using Link Storm and it's an Earth monster. But yeah, then it's Yakuza's turn, so he's probably going to backstab either Dracorosa or Saber Dragon, and then have this Jaguardian set up. But then he doesn't. He actually backstabs Jaguardian. I'm not entirely sure why he did that, but that's what he went for. And then he gets the free turn with Sakuralisk from the stun, using a double repulse there. Pretty smart. He got rid of the XYZ because, probably because it was charging its double drain survivor slowly. And I think also he just got rid of both of those because they have times up and Sakuralisk has Chrono and his next monsters have Chrono in them too. So he really needs to have them off the field and then deal with them as they come in rather than having them kill his monsters. So at this point again I'd say Geomagnus is the big one that he wants to go for. She wants to go for. But it's also really hard to plan because you need to get past the stealth. And then Sakuralisk needs to be off because there's loads of stun coming in too. So in the end, she decides to just start hitting Sakuralisk. This Geomagnus could Blood Fury. He actually goes for Element Retribution. Pretty smart there. Get the 2 kills, and it's very efficient. So now we have the times up, which we can do on Sakuralisk. You also want to take down that Geomagnus. I keep saying it. It's going to be tough though, because it's stealthed and everything. Anna's got Quillin next in line, which at this point it had stunning entrance. So Sakuralisk is the highest priority. There's no doubt about that. Got to get rid of Sakuralisk so the stun can at least not backfire. So the time's up here on Sakuralisk and then Geomagnus would be great. Except Geomagnus isn't going to quite die. Also, Anna is really thinking ahead here, and we'll see that in a little bit. It's not super evident right now, but she's planning ahead to continually stun the enemy team, and she's trying to work out how best to get to that. So she does the Chrono Killer with the Chromera at this point. I believe that's because Ithlegoch would potentially kill Chromera before it gets a turn, and so it can't one-shot the Ryzen immediately, so better to have the Ryzen being the one to get the turn next. So she decides to stun the Ithlegoch out of play, just to get that out of play, because then actually Yakuza can't do too much. With that stunned, Dracorosa and Saber Dragon can't do a whole lot on the battlefield. The Dracorosa failed to kill the Quillin, which is great. Quillin's nice and tanky. And yes, it's really deciding what to get rid of next. This Geomagnus would be good to get rid of, so she gets rid of it with XYZ. Very nice hitting it first and then taking out. As it happened, it didn't actually need that extra damage, but it's good that the Ithlegoch didn't die here. So now what she's able to do is just keep Ryzen in play and stun the the Blue Maluga with the Quillen. So now 2 enemies are stunned. This is looking pretty good, because that Dracorosa and Saber Dragon, they haven't been able to do much for most of the battle, and then now the other 2 monsters are stunned out of play. She's starting to take control here. And that's really what she was trying to think ahead with this stun, is like, stun is how she's going to win this battle, absolutely, but Yakuza's got so much stun immunity that it's not immediately obvious how to manage that. So the Yakuza knows he's in a pretty dire situation, uses Electrocute to get rid of 2 of his monsters, killing off his own Ithreikoch. However, unfortunately, it means that Ryzen got a turn before Angel Lion. Angel Lion did get a turn because it came in and was stunned, but Ryzen got the turn from Electrocute as he was overwatched, so he was able to immediately kill both of those enemies. And now from here, it's really going to be a case of, can Anna keep the enemies stunned out of play? So she gets rid of the Blue Maluga so that the others are possible to stun. And then Glaceron is not going to go for a kill here. It's just going to go to stun things. So Vigzorid is the biggest problem, because if you stun anything else, then Vigzorid can just give turn to it. Plus it's got the camouflage that makes, every bit of targeting more awkward. Bulbabasher, do note that it is powered up with the Gaia power, because Dracorosa is a plant, so it's not the easiest to kill. So at this point, when I was originally looking at this footage, I was thinking, okay, so what I want to do is, Nova Drake has 1 kill, so do the Dreaded Strike on Bulbabasher, and then you should be able to kill off the Bulbabasher with 2 more Raw Bloodthirsts. However, that's not what Anna's going to do. So at this point, unfortunately, the game closed and she reopened it, so we're going to miss exactly what this Harlequin does. It does a Dual Slayer Bane on Ryzen and XYZ. So rather than doing the 2 Raw Bloodthirsts, as I said, instead what she goes for is some pretty clever stun. So she gets rid of the stealth, then does the stun blitz, and then does stun retribution on Bulbabasher, and actually that's really nice to control the enemy team here. So she doesn't kill anything yet, she just basically passes a bit of time hitting the Dracorosa. She keeps stunning that Vigzorid. Glaceron can basically focus on keeping Vigzorid out of play right now, and she's trying to get rid of that Dracorosa, because even though it's not like a big threat or anything, it's the one enemy that can't be stunned. So she just passes with stuff. She's planning on doing the step back with Saberzor, but wants to soak up a hit first. And yeah, Yakuza knows that Glaceron is a problem, so he gets rid of the stealth there, rather than actually killing off, say, the Ryzen. So grabs 1 kill on Centurion, so Centurion is ready to go with the Raw Blood Crave if needed, which may come up because of the rocks behind. But it goes for the Counter-Strike, she goes for the Counter-Strike, and yeah, it actually one-shots Arachnodiva. I wouldn't have guessed that, but yeah. And from here you can pretty much see that the battle is won. She managed to stun them enough out of play that just, continually stunning them, she was able to keep them under control. I was surprised when I first saw this. I didn't, it's nice seeing other people play because they make different decisions to what I would do, and I think she did a really good job of, in that middle section of the battle, keeping her cool and not just kind of killing random monsters or, trying to kill through the enemy team. She actually didn't focus on the Geomagnus quite as much as I would have, which paid off because Yakuza didn't take out, say, his Dracorosa or his Saber Dragon with the backstab. He went a bit more aggressive with his Geomagnus, and also backstabbing the Dragardian at the beginning. So I'm not entirely sure if that was misplays by Yakuza, but it definitely paid off a lot for Anna in the way that she then controlled the battle. So look, we're looking at Yakuza's team here, and to talk through some of the strategy, it's always really hard to dissect someone else's team that they've made compared to your own, but I'm going to try my best here. So I will say I think this was created by Anna herself, or someone else anyway, so it doesn't have maybe the secret skills exactly right. I'm not entirely sure. And for example, there's no secret skill on Focal Force, but then there's a secret skill on Vigzorid, even though there's no other Storm, so there's no way it will be able to use the Link move. But anyway, I think probably Focal Force has the secret skill on, and that Suikenshi could do as well. Anyway, so at the beginning we have the cool combo between Jagardian and Suikenshi. Jagardian doing the haze, making everything stealthed, and then Suikenshi can stealth break anything at once, as well as Jagardian being able to stealth bane after that. The Dracorosa and the Saber Dragon, these are not immediately obvious. I believe the Dracorosa was because at this particular time, the meta had a lot of poison front lines in it. So I think Dracorosa protects from that pretty nicely, because, you know, obviously it has the Purifying Mist as well as Defang. It's just like probably the most anti-poison monster that exists, other than maybe Aetherlegok, but you know. Yeah, so Dracorosa in there, I think is to protect from that. And generally it works as a really good sweeper. Saber Dragon, I believe that's in there because it can protect from one-on-one. So he's really done an interesting front line here, where it's very awkward to get through. There are no killer weaknesses, everything is stun immune, and then also he has protection from poison, and he has protection from sleep. He's really going all in on the Jaguardian and Suikenshi as the main kind of damage dealers at the beginning. Then next in line he has Geomagnus, which Geomagnus, again, stun immune, no killer weaknesses, and that can then get rid of either the Dracorosa or the Saber Dragon if they're not really doing that much. Now strangely in that battle he didn't do that, but I think generally speaking, if I were to look at this team, that's what I think it's there for, that it's going to do that and help go into the mid game if needed, particularly going into Sakuralisk. Sakuralisk is incredibly powerful on the battlefield, but if you're leaving it up to the opponent to like bring it onto the battlefield, they may only do that if they have a way of dealing with it when it comes on. So Geomagnus being able to, you have the control of when you bring it in, can help Sakuralisk work quite a bit better. Then after the Sakuralisk, so Sakuralisk is really for mid-game control, and yeah, what he really has in the middle is like the powerhouse monsters. This team is just like full of like the best monsters for PvP in the game, and Sakuralisk can do a lot of control. Then there's Aetherlegok, which is just like one of the best all-round sweepers. That it's tanky, it will come in and then it can just piercing kill things. Blue Manuka, he doesn't really need it for the stun protection, but it's an awkward monster to deal with, and if you have the control from Sakuralisk, you've already got some sweepers in there. Blue Manuka can sometimes sit there and, you know, get to its point where it can tsunami, and it's really annoying to deal with. Then he has a couple of like raw monsters. I don't think there's any kind of particular raw theme going on here, but powerhouse monsters. Vixierid, it's not Link Storm, but Vixierid's good. Right at the back, it's hard to dissect again. I think he really likes his Harlequin, or he was testing it out or whatever. He's got Harlequin in there. It generally works well at the back, and then weirdly, the Harlequin next to Bubble Basher having two Slayerbane monsters, I don't really see the crossover synergy there, but you know, that's what's going on there. And then Arachnadiva at the end. Arachnadiva is just very powerful. So yeah, strong mythics, strong monsters all round. That's really what this team's about, with some synergy there at the beginning especially. But what I really liked about this battle is you can see here Yakuza's team. You can probably gather from the way I'm talking about it, it's not the most synergistic team. Like, it's very powerful and it works against the vast majority of people. It's very difficult to beat, but if you tied together some really cool synergy, then you can do it. So Anna's team here, this is actually very similar to what I would create. It was really nice to look at, to see and think, this is literally like, this could be a team that I created. The only thing which like I wouldn't put in is like, I don't personally like Voidress Frontlines, and I don't like Chroma, so I wouldn't have Chroma in there. But other than that, like, this is definitely a team I could see myself making, and the way it played out, that's the way I love to play. Bit of, you know, controlled stun in the way that you want to play it. So the thing I want to hone in on first is the mid game, because that's really what wins battles more than anything else. And this mid game is almost exactly what I've put together myself. And what I'm talking about there is the Malwing, Blue Maluka, Quillin, Nova Drake. Those four monsters in that combination I play with. I don't play it with anymore because Quillin's been nerfed and I've now evolved my Quillin. But this was a lineup of four monsters that I've used a lot, and it's very, very successful. So what's so great about this is that the Malwing comes in, gives you the stun, gives you the sleep. It gives you control of the scenario in most cases. Tranquilizing Entrance is just incredibly powerful in that way. So Malwing comes in, it should hopefully not backfire. Then when it gets a turn, which will be after a little bit of time, you can then blow back. Now, the importance of that blowback cannot be understated. Bringing in the next monster in your team is really good for if you have those next monsters being things that you need in certain scenarios. And the two monsters behind Malwing are a Stun Protector and a Stunning Entrance. If you can remove the any stun protection from the enemy team with the blowback, to then bring in the stunning entrance, which then it can sacrifice itself to do stun burst, Nova Drake comes in, it does stun wave. That's an incredible amount of stun that you do to the enemy team, and you'll pretty much win from there, because that's what Nova Drake does. If you stun the enemy team loads, and you've got stun protection set up, which, there's the Blue Maluga there, you should be able to win with Nova Drake in most cases. So, if the Blue Maluga's already come in by the time Malwing gets a turn, and they only have one source of stun protection, and you can blow back that, you can pretty much win the game from there. If you get a turn with Malwing, Blue Maluga isn't in the battlefield, but you need stun protection, well then you can blow back and your stun protection comes in. There's a number of scenarios where that blowback works out really nicely, and Malwing also is quite a decent sweeper. I don't think people really value that enough. Malwing is a really good sweeper, so it can sit on the battlefield and actually be useful until then you do the blowback to bring in the stun burst or whatever it is. There's a lot of control you have with these 4 monsters in a row, and it's pretty much a win condition in itself. Behind that is basically good stuff. Glaceron, Centurion, Infernocorn, they're just kind of good monsters. Centurion gives some protection from Lemon endgames, or otherwise just both sleep and poison. So it's quite nice in that regard. Glaceron gives some protection from poison, and as we saw in that battle, it can also add to this stun control that you do with Nova Drake. Nova Drake only has the stun wave, which hits all enemies, so having the single target stun can come into play, as it did in this battle, stunning the Vixiorid, stunning the Bubble Basher. It's really good for that. The second last monster is just a cheap give turn monster that can't actually be thrown in this battle. It's just, it can be useful as cost goes. It's really good. So this mid to late game is very solid. I really like the design of it. It's exactly what I would build. I mean, I literally have those 4 monsters, and then after that, I think it's good. The front bit is just full-on Link Storm. I would say, as a critique, I think there's too much Chrono Killer. We've got the times up from both Ryzen and XYZ, and then also the Chrono Killer from Chroma. I don't think Chroma is necessary in this team. I think it's a bit too much. You can have something else in there in place of Chroma, and the team would probably be a bit better. But clearly Anna really wants to just remove any stun converters, any stun counters, to then open them up to stun, to then win with that mid game. And that's very effective, as we saw in the battle. I'll say also, Chroma you don't need it for the Accelerate either, because there's Saberzor in the front line, which has Accelerate team, so you've already got the Accelerate there. But yeah, doubling up the times up, you got the Eclipse from Voidress at the beginning to kill anything you want, and then hopefully they have stuff which then you can times up, or otherwise, past a bit of time you can stun them. And Vixiorid supports Link Storm so well with the instant Link Hypnotize, and also then obviously the other moves are good. In terms of stun protection, this is quite nicely done. Stun protection is always a big thing to talk about in the community, and in terms of teaching people how to build their teams, stun protection is a really big factor. And I would say I'm an adamant fan of doing the minimalist approach to stun protection. I don't like spamming stun immune things, but you do need stun protection in there. And I think this is really nicely put together, where you have a camouflage monster in the front line. There's another camouflage monster in 5th position, which those will dodge some amount of stun. Then you've got the stun absorber in the front line. So really what that stun absorber is protecting is the 2 other monsters that are stunnable in the front line, like easily stunnable, and then the Chromera. And then you've got 3 monsters there which can really effectively be stunned. Before then, there's a stun counter. So that's the kind of nice spacing between the 2 different forms of stun protection. Then we've got the Blue Maluga in the mid game. I would say that's actually a pretty smart call, because while Leogeist having a stun counter is excellent, you will come up against times up and Chrono Killer, so sometimes it will die really quickly, and it's actually very safe putting a stun absorber next to a stun counter. So that's perfectly fine. Having that 3 layers in the first 9 monsters, that's going to work really well to keep this team functioning and not being countered by stun. And then at the end there's a couple of stun converter things, but nothing serious there in terms of protecting you from stun. And I think that's right. I think it would be wrong to like slap in some stun absorber in those last monsters just for stun protection. I think it's better to have, as she's done with a couple of stun converter sweepers that are, you know, good in other scenarios too. And like we've already said, the Glaceron doing the stunning, the stun control and stuff. Yeah, this is great. I've said stun too much, I think. Yeah, I went in deep on the analysis on these teams because I think it's a good opportunity to have a look at teams that I haven't created myself but are really good, and I like the synergy. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video soon.